People you talking about, they spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole, and they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes, and they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see the white America is completely closed all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
And if you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is right to the core, and we gonna unbreak it. That's it. And that's all.
That other kind of socialism that revolutionizes the workplace, brings democracy to the workplace for the first time.
So that's one way. And then the other thing is, in my more optimistic days, he's such a perfect endpoint of everything that is toxic and dysfunctional about the United States, about capitalism, about the 80s, that maybe this is the final sort of disgusting burst before we evolve or change to something better.
Talk about some things about why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck, John.
What are they talking about? Fortified. Are you fortified for the long run? Do you have your cemetery clothes on? Are you coffin ready to live and die for something bigger than you, like a fundamental transformation of a capitalist civilization?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, and I am here with you today to talk about what I think is just this is a monumental moment that we have, approaching here. And this is what I believe to be truly a pivotal moment for the left movement in this country and the progressive movement here in the United States. And I honestly think that what we may be risking here is a potential Trump presidency in 2024. And a Republican-controlled House and Senate by then as well. And I honestly believe what could come next could be, it could be Trump, or it could be worse if the Democrats fail to deliver on this, critical campaign promise. So for everyone that is, just joining us, please do us a favor, just hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and share this out on social media. And so what we're going to be, what I hope to lay out here tonight is, what the issue at hand is here. This is the fight for a $15 minimum wage. This fight began in 2012 in New York. We were talking about a $15 minimum wage, and now here we are 9 years later, still talking about a $15 minimum wage. And this is a $15 minimum wage that would phase in over 5 years. Now, the Senate recently stripped out. The House originally passed a bill, a COVID relief bill, this $1.9 trillion Biden COVID relief bill. The House originally passed it with a provision that included a $15 minimum wage. When the bill then goes to the Senate stripped that provision out. Bernie Sanders tried to force an amendment back into the legislation that would have enacted a $15 minimum wage. Unfortunately, at that point, 8 Democrats voted against that, and all Republicans voted against that. So 8 Democrats joined in with Republicans to, just give a middle finger to essential workers in the middle of a pandemic here. And so this is, so after that, after the 8 senators then voted against that, the amendment did not make it in. So now this bill goes back to the House of Representatives at this point, and it will be voted on in the House of Representatives. And this is the final chance. After the House of Representatives votes for it, if they pass it, then it will go to Biden's desk. If they reject it, then they have to start, the process over, which can happen, it could happen the same day. It could happen the next day. Essentially, they could pass another bill. So they'll go right back to the original negotiations. It will start the process over. The House will have to pass another bill. They can take it up in the Senate again and vote in the Senate. And then, it'll get kicked back to the House. And so what we have here is a really rare opportunity. This is, these opportunities don't come around, but once every decade sometimes, and even worse than that. And so this is, so they, the question is, are the progressives, so what we need is essentially 6 to 10 Democrats are needed in the House of Representatives to block this legislation. So we need 6 Democrats now that are willing to say, listen, unless you put $15 minimum wage into this bill, then we will not vote in favor of this bill, which would, prevent, that will block the legislation from happening. That could force that would then force the negotiations to begin again in the Senate. And because the Senate is really where the holdup is, the House is already passing the $15 minimum wage. And so there's no holdup in the House. It's really in the Senate. That's the true problem. And so, and that's Joe Manchin, essentially. One senator is able to say, I refuse to, he's claiming that he refuses to vote in favor of a bill that includes a $15 minimum wage. He claimed that he supported $11 minimum wage, but he didn't replace it with any kind of amendment or provision to pass an $11 minimum wage. So this would just leave it as is, $7.25, where it's been since 2009. And so we have now, the House is going to vote for this on Monday. And that is pretty much our last chance for the $15 minimum wage to make it into this bill. And the risk here that we run is, and we talked about this back in January when there was a debate around forcing a vote on Medicare for all, a floor vote on Medicare for all, under the threat of withholding support for Nancy Pelosi speakership. And the progressives, the squad, and other progressives in Congress were in the House of Representatives were unwilling to do so, and did not exercise their power there. we were told, we have to wait for a better time. There was, we didn't want to waste the political capital then. This was a floor vote that wasn't going to guarantee Medicare for all. Now, there were other demands that we also tried to make on top of that would have actually given people health care during this crisis, like, in passing a House resolution that would, urge Joe Biden to use his executive authority to enact the provision of the Affordable Care Act that says that any region of the United States experiencing a public health crisis he can authorize the states to essentially he can expand Medicare for all to any amount of people within that region. And so he could expand Medicare to every single person in that region. And currently, because of COVID-19, the entire country is experiencing a public health crisis. And so he could essentially enact Medicare for all. But people said, back then, listen, that's not direct enough. And if we just get a floor vote, that you're just getting a vote, it's not going to get you Medicare for all because it's not going to pass through the Senate. There were all kinds of arguments made, and I've debunked them in the past, and I would love to debunk them again, and happy to do so later on if we have the time. But what we were told is that wasn't the right fight, and that the progressives needed to hold on and make their little backroom deals to use their power at a later time. And now it's at this point with this bill, it's now or never. There's only going to be one massive piece of legislation passed from now until October. So the next time they're reconvening again to pass any kind of serious legislation is not going to be until October, until they can use the budget reconciliation process once again directly. And the budget reconciliation process is what allows them to pass legislation with only 50 votes, a simple majority. Otherwise, they got to get 10 Republicans on board, and there's no way that's happening. The Republicans were able to pass the $6 trillion tax cuts through with budget reconciliation. They were able to pass the Bush era tax cuts, both of those through with budget reconciliation. And they also repealed they were able to repeal get a vote to repeal the ACA under budget reconciliation, but it was voted down sort of famously, John McCain with the thumbs down, kind of reminiscent of a recent, little display from Kirsten Sinema with her thumbs down vote on the $15 minimum wage, actually, where she just like sort of frolicked right in and gave her little hashtag white feminism thumbs down on that. And just we have this is really this is it really. This moment is so crucial, because if they don't get this minimum wage into the bill, this is the last test for progressives and the progressives that we've elected. And I've been fighting alongside and fighting in this movement and in the so-called progressive movement. I'm a socialist. I don't identify as a progressive personally. I think the term is just too watered down at this point and really vague, and just doesn't really say it doesn't speak to what's your actual ideology, right? I hate relative terms. Like it's relative to whatever the moment is, right? It's relative to the status quo. It was saying we want to make progress from where we are right now, right? And so it's something that is sort of an ever shifting, I don't even know what to call it. I can't really call it an ideology, because again, it's not a core set of principles, because it's constantly moving, right? So the more progress we make, you got to be progressive beyond that, right? So I look at the Congressional Progressive Caucus in Congress. I mean, these are not progressive folks, right? They just like the label. They know that the label it's good brand, right? So progressive is a good brand, but they don't want to actually uphold the values of so-called progressive values, which are essentially, progressives are social democrats. They believe in social democracy in this country. That's what a progressive is. And so but this is a crucial moment for the progressive movement, because there are people that, and I've seen, folks are losing hope right now, all over. I've seen it. You just flip through social media and see the response from people, because this is, a lot of us sort of, you go watch my content going back all the way to before the election, and you'll see me saying, unfortunately, that I don't think that they're going to deliver on any of this stuff. But, if they're going to deliver one thing, I thought if they're going to deliver one thing under Joe Biden, it's going to be the $15 minimum wage, because it was literally the only thing that Bernie Sanders could get him to agree to. And so, what you would think, he said it in debates, he said it all over the campaign trail, they're going to pass the $15 minimum wage. And this is after this COVID bill has already been just weakened beyond repair. This was supposed to be the bill that was supposed to go out with $2,000 checks immediately. Now we're talking about $1,400 checks, and it's the middle of March and people still haven't been paid. I know people that still haven't received the Trump $600 relief check. So, and they're still waiting on that. And so they're, people are desperate. There's rent's due, and folks are struggling to make rent and to put food on the table. And this is serious stuff, right? And you got the people that are working right now under minimum wage are working some of the highest risk jobs in the country, and they're working on the front lines and what we now consider essential work. We're saying these people are essential. They are crucial to our supply chains in order to put food on the grocery store shelves. These are the kinds of people that are critical in that to keep, patients taken care of in hospitals, and the roads clear, and all these sorts of crucial services and infrastructure that needs to be maintained. These people are the people that we have deemed essential in this crisis. And we're saying in the middle of that, with 10 million people already losing their jobs, and we can't look to the rest of those folks holding onto this work and risking their lives every day and say that they deserve to not live in poverty. If you make $7.25 and you live below the poverty line, all right, if you make $7.25 an hour and you work a full-time job, 40 hours a week, 52 hours a year at minimum wage, you are in poverty. All right. So that's below the poverty line. To get people just above the poverty line, you need to give them $15. All right. So what we're talking about with $15, it's not a dignified living wage. All right. It's a survival wage, right? So we're just talking about just for people to survive, you need to get them $15 an hour right now. And that's anywhere in this country. I don't care where you are, right? Oh, it's not perfect for these people, they only need $14.72. No, I'm sorry. The people have been, shortchanged for long enough. They deserve a little bit extra in wherever places. I'd rather some people get a little bit too much than tens of millions of people not get nearly enough. Because we're talking about, this would be a pay raise by all estimates, 32 plus million Americans. So over 32 million Americans will be getting a direct pay raise from this legislation passing the $15 minimum wage. This impacts 32 million people. That's, you're talking about, 20% of the labor force, right? So 1 in every 5 workers, more than 1 in every 5 workers are impacted by this. Over 50% of Black workers would be getting a pay raise under this legislation, and 60% of Latino workers would be getting a pay raise under this legislation. So this is, and that's the people that the Democratic Party is supposedly out here to represent, right? And this is supposed to be the people that they're protecting, but they only ever seem to do it symbolically and not substantively when it matters, right? And the thing is, there's a lot of blame swinging around now, and there's a lot of blame going around. There were a lot of people that could have prevented this from getting to this point, and they all deserve blame, right? So Joe Biden, number one, right? He's the president of the United States, and he absolutely sets the tone on this. If he believed in a $15 minimum wage, you would see a $15 minimum wage in this bill. He would simply use the bully pulpit just like Donald Trump did, right? I'll go to your state. I will campaign against you. I will villainize you in the press. If you really believe in something, if you really want to fight for something, there's a really simple way to do it as the president of the United States, right? So he had all the power in this situation. And if he truly believed in this, then we would have the $15 minimum wage would be in this bill right now. There's no chance that Joe Manchin would be able to stop it. Joe Manchin is not the president of the United States, all right? Joe Biden is, all right? Joe Biden, not Joe Manchin. So so Joe Biden, number one, Kamala Harris as I found out there's 2 names for it. She's the presiding officer of the Senate, but it's also known as the president of the Senate. So Kamala Harris as vice president is also the president of the Senate. And she absolutely has the authority to overrule the advice, the opinion of the Senate parliamentarian who none of us ever heard of until, we needed a $15 minimum wage with Democrats controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House. Like, there are no more excuses. This is not the Republicans blocking. There are no Republicans that are going to vote on this legislation. I don't care how little they give in this, no matter how little they give, not a single Republican will vote in favor of this. All right. So any suggestion that you need Republican votes is absurd, right? There's no chance you're getting Republicans. So this is all the Democrats negotiating with themselves. So everybody has to be very clear on this, that this is what the Democratic Party is giving up, right? It is offering up to us. And this was the campaign promise that they were operating on, right? This is what people voted for. People went out there and they voted in such a tight election. You know, it was by a skin of his teeth. Joe Biden won this. You know, it's tens of thousands of votes in a handful of states that Joe Biden won this election by, and those people, you know, they then in Georgia with those runoff elections, particularly black voters in Georgia, went out there, voted for Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, who said, we're going to get $2,000 checks out to you immediately, and then turned around as soon as they were elected and immediately began to change the tune on that and talk about $1,400. We never heard them ever say the number 1,400 never was mentioned before they were elected. Not once did they mention a number 1,400. They said 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, and never this implication that's somehow minus the $600 that Trump was supposed to give you, that some people still haven't even received, right? So and that was supposed to be in January. That was back in January. They were talking about in December. They said it'll go out the door immediately in January, and here we are in March, 2 months later, and you're still talking about the same $1,400. Why are we still talking about the same $1,400? Like they owe these people more. They owe people more than $1,400. We should have been talking about $2,000 recurring checks in this bill. Like that could exist. The progressives, the same way that Joe Manchin. So all that Joe Manchin's done here, right, to get Joe Biden to get the supposedly, right, at best, supposedly here, Joe Manchin, West Virginia senator, has said he won't vote for this bill if it includes a $15 minimum wage. Well, all they need then is for Bernie and Elizabeth Warren to have then countered that and said, well, we won't vote for the bill unless it includes a $15 minimum wage at a bare minimum, right? So, and we want, and because you're sitting there playing games, like we want a $2,000 a month. With retroactive payments going back to the beginning of the pandemic for every single person in this country, right? $2,000 for every adult, $1,000 for every child if you want, right? And I'm fine with it being $2,000 for every single person in this country, right? And you can say, and that should be the type of things that they're taking stances and saying, listen, Joe Manchin is trying to block this bill to make it worse, to give people less, right? And they're sitting here, just pay close attention to what's going on, because they're doing this. They always have to nickel and dime, and these fights always happen this way. And they start to pull out the calculators and start to nickel and dime people whenever it comes to helping the American people out, right? To helping the masses of people. Then they all of a sudden all get really fiscally conservative and they're really concerned, right? Nobody was concerned. Does anybody know what corporations got from the CARES Act? It was $4.5 trillion. We're talking, they literally got 500 billion that was leveraged. It was 450 billion leveraged by the Federal Reserve at 10 to 1, right? So they leveraged it at 10 to 1, meaning that the corporations could now borrow up to 4.5 trillion from the Fed, right? So they just give this money away to corporations, right? No strings attached, no questions asked, right? Just dark money. Nobody is tracking that. You tell me, do you know where that money's gone? Nobody knows, because they weren't required to actually tell us who was getting the money, right? So they just give them a blank check to all the corporations, $4.5 trillion. And now they got us sitting here playing games over what was already a $1.9 trillion package to start with, and has been whittled down worse and worse, lower and lower, right? It was supposed to, initially it was a $1.9 trillion package when it was including, $1,400 payments, $2,000 payments that were supposed to go to every person making up to at least 100,000. It should have been 125,000. That's where it was under Trump. It was 125,000, right? In the CARES Act, right? 125,000 for individual filers. Everybody under that got the check. They changed it to 100,000 initially, and then moved it from 100,000 to 80,000. Right? If you make over $80,000, you get nothing, no matter where you live. And just think about what $80,000 is. $80,000 is very different. If you live in, New York, New York City, Manhattan, Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, Boston, just these major cities, right? Miami. Like if you live in these places, your rent, like $80,000 is very different than if you're living in rural America somewhere, right? So it's very different for different people. So to say $80,000 blanket across the board, you're now talking about getting 17 million less people checks, right? 12 million adults and 5 million less children are going to get checks from Joe Biden, then receive checks from Donald Trump, right? So they're going to get less than they got from Donald Trump. Donald Trump gave people $1,800, right? $1,200 from the first relief bill, and then $600 in the second relief bill, right? So $1,800 total for COVID relief, right? And now you, as Joe Biden, who the only bar he was supposed to be able to clear was be better than Donald Trump. Just everybody told us, whatever he is, at least he's better than Donald Trump, right? And that's the low bar that you have to clear, because we all know, Donald Trump is not some moral or intellectual and anything, any standard that we need to be basing anything off of. He's down near the bottom of on any metric that we want to measure character and humanity on, and that's the bar that they had to clear. And Joe Biden apparently cannot clear that bar, that low bar, be better than Donald Trump. So it's going to be less money. So instead of $1,800, $1,400, and instead of going out to people making up to 100,000, it's only 80,000, which is literally getting you that's going to give you 12 million less adults a check and 5 million less children. Oh, because we all know the children they're doing so great right now, right? The whole future generation, they're all just doing too fine. They're just doing too well. We really got to knock those children down a notch, right? We got to knock those kids down a notch, right? Middle class kids right there. Got to knock them down a notch. So this is the thing, right? We gotta see what's going on, and it doesn't matter if it's the Republicans in power or the Democrats in power. We need to criticize these politicians in the same kind of way, and we can't just excuse this kind of. This is all the Democrats negotiating with themselves at this point. So, anywho, I need to get to actually explaining how. Well, just showing sort of. I want to show a few clips here. So I've gone on for a while here. So let me actually show a few clips here. And so I'll start by just showing this is the founder and host of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, who is the Young Turks is the largest progressive media network on the planet, right? Like they are the premier progressive media outlet, right? And whatever you want to call progressive, of the left, I mean, and so that there's no doubt, however you feel about them, that's where they stand. They have over 5 million subscribers on YouTube. They are on cable news, on radio. They are, on YouTube TV. They're everywhere, right? So they have a outsized power on the left, and we have to recognize that. And Cenk Uygur, he was also a co-founder of the Justice Democrats, which is the movement designed to try to take over the Democratic Party, right? These are the people that believe that the way to make the biggest gains in society are to take over the Democratic Party because of the two-party system in this country. They say you can't beat the two-party system. I don't know that they're totally wrong there. They say you can't beat the two-party system. So the only way that you're going to win is by taking over one of the major parties. So they say, let's board the ship, as Cenk likes to say, board the ship, take it over, right? For the progressives, right? And so have progressives do a takeover of the Democratic Party and use that apparatus, right? To push forward progressive goals. Now, those are the people that believe in that strategy, right? And so this is a leader of that movement who is now questioning, seemingly, everything that he's been fighting for the past few years. And I think that that's significant because of the power that TYT has and the reach that Cenk himself has as an individual on the left. And so I think that when he says something like this, that it has, a ripple effect on the left, and ultimately could sort of represent the feelings of a very large swath of the progressive movement, left movement in the United States, right? So let's take a look at this clip of Cenk And I shared this in a stream recently, but we'll just play again. It's a short clip, like less than 2 minutes.
Hey, everybody. So here we go. I'm going to burn my bridges. I got to tell you what's the reality about progressives in Congress. So let me be clear. They do not have bad intent. They all mean well. They all want the $15 minimum wage passed. They want Medicare for all passed. They want Green New Deal passed. They want all of that. Okay. They're good people. But tonight they'll meet. And they will very, 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 very likely decide to do nothing about putting $15 minimum wage back into the COVID relief bill. And that means we will lose on $15 minimum wage. But it also means, and this is the most disheartening part, and this is why I'm doing this video and telling you guys, that means we will lose from here on out. You must be able to block a must-pass bill if you are to have power. Honestly, it's just basic politics. It's not that complicated. It's not some brilliant strategy. Why does Joe Manchin get everything he wants? Why is he, like, now people are wondering, is he the president? He took out $15 minimum wage almost single-handedly from this bill. Why? He said, I won't vote for the bill if it's in it. That's how you do politics. And people might find that uncomfortable. And if you're a good progressive and a good person, you might say, well, you know, that endangers people a little bit and it delays the bill a little bit and he shouldn't do that. Okay, yes, but it does lead to power. It does lead to a seat at the negotiating table. If you're not willing to block a bill, you have no power at all. And that is current state of play.
All right, so that was, Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, co-founder, original founder, co-founder of Justice Democrats, who, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal. They have a block of progressives in the House right now, larger than the margin between the Republicans and the Democrats, and they have so they have a block large enough that if that block says, because no Republican, we assume that no Republican is going to vote for this bill. This is a bill that, again, no matter what they put in there, no Republican is going to vote is going to vote in favor of this, right? So this is a bill that you don't expect even, there's nothing in there for conservative, for the conservatives and for Republicans to get on board with. So 0 votes from them. All you need is essentially 6 to 10 Democrats to hold out. And so what you got is the squad, essentially, right? The Justice Democrats have more than that in Congress. This is what they say, this movement was about getting, fighting, everyday people fighting with everything that we could to get these people into place so that they could hear us out, right? We were going to get uncorrupted politicians into power so that when they were there, they would still have their ear to the streets and still be listening to the people, right? And wouldn't lose touch with their constituency because they weren't corrupted and bought out by these corporate interests, right? They had the air, they had the movement of the people behind them, right? The establishment has the money, we have the people, right? And so this is why we got them. This is what we were told the whole fight was about. And people have been contributing their hard-earned money, their time, their energy into this movement, to fighting for the last 4+ years now to try to get progressives elected. And we're told that the point is to get enough in power that they can together as a block of representatives in Congress can wield some power and can start to move legislation to the left. And the thing is, Joe Manchin is single-handedly managing to move legislation to the right. Why is it that progressives in the House aren't able to band together and to wield their power to move legislation to the left? And they absolutely can. And this is the moment. And honestly, as Cenk said there, he says that if they don't do this minimum wage, if they don't get this minimum wage passed as a part of this COVID relief bill, he says that means we're going to lose on the 15 minimum wage, but it also means we will lose from here on out, right? Like, this is because what this says is it sets the tone. I believe they already set the tone under force the vote, right? And I don't think that my belief is that squad and these Congress people, these so-called progressives, my belief is that they're not going to go out there and to vote to block this. They're going to fold, and they're going to allow this one conservative Democrat to make the bill worse and to threaten to delay. He threatened, Joe Manchin, we have to make that clear. Joe Manchin threatened to vote against this bill, thus blocking it and delaying the bill, right? He said, I'm willing to block this bill if you don't take it out. They have to say, okay, well, we are willing to block this bill and to prevent it until it goes in there. And stare him down and say, are you sure you wanna be the reason? And remember, Joe Manchin's reasoning is to take less, to give people less. The progressives would be saying, we're holding this up because we want people to get more. We want people to get something out of this bill, right? Something significant, something lasting, not just a temporary. What they're talking about right now is all temporary, right? The $1,400 one-time check, it's a joke. It's so temporary. It's such a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's so woefully inadequate for the vast majority of people, right? What we're talking about is just scraps, crumbs right now, right? And it's just temporary stuff, one time. A $15 minimum wage, that's permanent. The minimum wage goes up, it does not go back down, all right? Once the minimum wage is raised, it never goes back down, all right? Look at the graph of it, right? It's too popular, all right? This is a popular policy. So you've got the people on your side in this argument. Joe Manchin does not. If he is willing to hold up the bill for reasons that people are against, you're not willing to hold up the bill, or at least be willing, you're not willing to at least threaten to hold up the bill for people, for reasons that people are in favor of, for popular reasons. The minimum $15 minimum wage has a 61% approval amongst all voters, amongst Republicans, Democrats, independents. Amongst all voters, 61% approval. Amongst Democrats, it's 88% amongst Democrats. All right. So, and these are the people that were elected. Those are the people that we put in power. Republicans had no problem doing everything they needed to do and stuffing everything that they could into the $6 trillion tax cut, adding $1.5 trillion to the deficit in the 2017 Trump tax cuts and through budget reconciliation. And they had no problem doing that. And so the Democrats and the progressives, they have to be willing to push and to threaten to withhold their vote here, because if they're not willing to do this, then that's it. The $15 minimum wage loses now. And it's not that it just loses now. It's never making it into anything. If it doesn't go in now, we're done. Because I'm telling you, the whole conversation is going to change by the time the next bill is rolling around. We're going to have all the threats of the upcoming midterms. From all the establishment politicians will start telling us, oh, the midterms are right around the corner. We have to be careful. We have to play it safe. The people that are in swing districts, we can't put them at risk, right? As if these aren't popular policies. As if these policies aren't popular. These policies are popular in Joe Manchin's, districts in Joe Manchin's state of West Virginia, in Kirsten Sinema's state of Arizona. The minimum wage would need to be $19 an hour in Arizona just to be able to afford the average 2-bedroom at fair market housing price, without going over 30% of your income, right? So you need $19 minimum wage. It's just about $15 in West Virginia. These are wildly popular policies. They stand to lose out. If are they willing to put their careers on the line to block what is a must-pass bill, right? This is crucial to Joe Biden's legacy as well, right? Joe Biden, this COVID bill must pass, right? And what we're talking about when we talk about delaying this bill, it's not delaying it for like months. They're not going to let this thing delay beyond March 14th, right? Like the March 14th is a cliff for the employment benefits. And so the unemployment benefits, sorry. And so on March 14th, the extended unemployment benefits expire. And so that extra, what is currently $300 a week, was supposed to be increased to $400 a week. But because of Joe Manchin, he got it stripped from $400 and got it drop down to $300 a week. All right. So they're giving you less. They're extending it by a month, but they're giving you less overall time, right? Because that's 5 months at $100 less a week versus, 4 weeks at $300, right? So you end up, people are losing out overall. And so they're taking away from people and giving people less. And the House Democrats could demand that make it in there too. The $15 minimum wage is a must, and they have the people well behind them. that's the one that you can then sit there and let it be compromised on. And it's like, okay, whatever, at least that is a, you know, a fundamental sort of, it's not quite structural change in my opinion. It doesn't really change the structure of the system in any real way, but there's an argument to be made that is a structural change, up in doubling the minimum wage. It will be the fastest minimum wage hike, but I mean, it's been stagnant for so long. This is, you know, it's never gone this long without being lifted. So it's long overdue, right? So all right. So let me, you know, this is, so this, and that's the thing about this, like, this is it, right? Monday is the day. If you live in a district and you have one of these Congress people, and honestly, even if you don't live in one of these districts, I think that if you want, you know, you're looking for something to do to make your voice heard in this, I think that what I would strongly suggest is picking up a phone and calling your congressperson if particularly if you're in the district of one of these squad members or a progressive Democrat in the House of Representatives, you know, anyone from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Rokana, Pramila Jayapal, Mark Pocan. Like, if you're in any of these people's districts, give them a call for sure. Even if you're anywhere else, we need to call all of them. We need to be calling them around the clock. I believe that, you know, after this and really right now, we should already begin organizing a general strike, because this is unacceptable. And we need to, if they're unwilling to give us $15 an hour this way, we need to be willing to withhold our labor, to use our collective power to withhold our labor, and to say enough is enough. We will not let this go on any further. We are going to stand in solidarity with essential workers and put our necks on the line there and stand with them, you know, and really support the general strike movement, right? To say we will stop, you know, we will grind this country to a halt until they don't implement and agree to just a $15 minimum wage. But we need to start talking about, seriously, we've been talking about a $15 minimum wage since 2012. It's time to start talking about a $20 to $25 minimum wage. If we're being really serious about a dignified living wage, we should be talking about $25 a minimum. You know, that should be the starting point. If we're talking about dignity, about providing every human being with dignity in this country, and if that's something that you believe in, then we should be starting the conversations around $25 and not playing the game of seeing what is the absolute minimum that we have to give to somebody. And then to everybody that says, oh no, we're going to lose jobs if you raise those minimum wages, people aren't going to be able to afford it, and then we're going to lose jobs. No, the government can absolutely subsidize that. All right, they subsidize it other ways. If they don't subsidize it through just directly through their wages, they will end up subsidizing it another way, right? Through social services programs. When people don't have enough, when they're not being paid enough, then they rely on social services more. You know, people are sicker, they end up costing the healthcare system more. And so there are other ways that we end up paying all of these costs collectively as a society. So it's better to just give it to the people directly, right? We can allow the government to supplement smaller businesses through tax breaks and other methods, right? And grants and loans that they can provide to small businesses to cover wages and supplement wages. And then on top of that, also provide a federal jobs guarantee, right? And say, if you lose your job, you know, through some private capitalist enterprise decides to fire you and says that they can't pay you a dignified living wage, then we, the government, will employ you. We have plenty of work to go around. There's infrastructure to be built. There is plenty of jobs to be done. The healthcare industry, inoculating people from the virus, getting everybody vaccines, getting testing done, manufacturing equipment, protective equipment. I mean, all of this stuff needs to be done, and there's plenty more there's always work to be done, rebuilding our infrastructure and improving it. So modernizing infrastructure, right? So there's plenty that we can do here, and we don't have to take these and accept these right-wing arguments against raising a minimum wage, right? This is a crucial moment, and we have to push in every way that we can. And honestly, contacting your congressperson, I intend to contact Ayanna Pressley. I am not living in Boston right now, not living in her district at the moment, but almost everybody on my Facebook that's where I lived most of my life. I voted for her. I supported her. I've donated to her. I've volunteered for her campaign. So, phone banked for her. And I absolutely, with my little tiny little bit of influence here as well, and online and on social media, I will absolutely contact. And I think I'll probably try to do. I literally have the phone number up right now on my screen. If you're in Ayanna Pressley's district, or you want to give Ayanna Presley a call, her district office. If you're not in the area, you could call her DC office, and the phone number is 202-225-5111. And if you're in the area, her phone number, her district office for Ayanna Presley is 617-850-0040. And you can just Google it for whoever your congressperson is. Just Google, the name, the town you live in. There's a thing that you can use for who's my rep. I think it's literally like whoismyrep.com, like whoismyrep.com. I'll try to find that. Give me 1 second. Representative. Let me see. I'll try to find it. Give me a sec. But there's like a find your representative on house.gov. If you just search for like find my representative, you type in your zip code and they'll tell you who your representative is. I'll show you what that looks like here. Actually, let me share my screen here. So here's that screen, right? So you just enter your zip code here. I'll bust this up a little bit, right? So that's all you got to do, right? So you just put in your zip code. I'm not going to put my actual zip code in, but 91210, is that what Beverly Hills is? 91210, 90210. Sorry, that was Beverly Hills, 90210. So you just find your rep by zip, type in your zip code, and they'll tell you your Adam Schiff is the Democrat, your Democratic rep, Ted Lieu or Brad Sherman. And you can enter your street address if you need to get more specific and know exactly who, because sometimes it can vary depending on, the certain area within your zip code. And so you find them, look them up, get their contact information, if Adam Schiff's your rep here, they'll take you to his page and stuff. And you can contact your representative, find, there's contact information for them on their websites, usually at the bottom of the page on their websites. Find their contact information. This is your, if you believe in electoral politics, this is what you got to do, right? If you believe in electoral politics, this is the last hope for a lot of people. People are losing hope. And I've already talked about my loss of hope for electoral politics, particularly at the national level, ever since January, essentially. I only had very little hope left for it, and it was waning over time. And back during the Force the Vote movement, that pretty much sealed the deal for me. But if you still believe in this, and you still think that, and I believe that honestly, if this is it, like for the progressive movement, I think that this is the last chance to maintain the excitement in the base and to keep something going. That if they miss out on this $15 minimum wage, I think that they lose the House, they're likely to lose the Senate in 2022. They're almost definitely going to lose the Senate in 2022. And then they're likely to lose the House as well in 2022 to the Republicans. And then by 2024, you're talking about a Trump presidency. There was a recent poll that they polled Republicans on who would you vote for president. Number one in that poll with 53% of the vote was Donald Trump. All right. So still right now, that was in early in February. So just a month ago, Republicans were polled and they said, Donald Trump's our guy still. And so if you don't believe that, if you think Donald Trump is gone and he's not coming back, you're mistaken. You're sadly mistaken. He still has a lot of support in the base. There's still a lot of people that are behind him. You saw the January 6th riots at the Capitol and that insurrection attempt. There are people he has a rabid base, and they will still be there in 2024. And honestly, if Trump decides not to run, I mean, the number 2 was Mike Pence, also out of the Trump, sphere. And then number 3 was Donald Trump Jr. in that poll. All right. So if you think that there's much hope for 2024, and honestly, I think that if it's not Donald Trump, there is a very strong possibility that we get someone worse than Trump, right? Somebody that believes in all those same horrific, corporate friendly, anti-labor, anti-working class policies, and is not a moron, right? Doesn't say the quiet part out loud, doesn't, make all the establishment types, feel icky, and they'll get away with all their same terrible policies, right? I mean, look at what's happening under Joe Biden right now. The policies of Donald Trump have by and large continued under Joe Biden. Kids are still in cages. We still are, we haven't relieved a single dime of student loan debt yet. People, no serious criminal justice reform, no expansion of voting rights whatsoever. This bill that they passed in the House will not pass through the Senate. There's 0% chance. So, what has really been done? Joe Biden got a waiver. That's pretty much the biggest piece of legislation that he's passed so far, is getting a waiver for his general to be for a former general to be the Secretary of Defense. So that's not, that is not, I need to moderate these comments. So that's not enough, right? It's not enough. It's been, continuation of Donald Trump's policies, essentially, because they just maintain the status quo, leaving everything in place and not really providing people, this $15 minimum wage was a campaign promise, and a crucial campaign promise. And people, this is what most people, this is what this bill is about for them. And it's, I didn't think that they could do any worse than this. But in the question now, like I said, was, are these progressives going to stand up and push back on this? Are they willing to vote no? I think we need to just put Loki on timeout in the chat there. So the question is, do we, what are these progressive Democrats in Congress? What are they going to do? Are they willing to use the power of the people with the power of the people behind them, with the support of the people behind them? Are they willing to do exactly what Joe Manchin is willing to do, and say, except for something good instead of something terrible, right? And are they willing to say, we will not vote for this unless and until it includes this bill includes a $15 minimum wage, all right? And see if Joe Biden and Joe Manchin and Kamala Harris are willing to stake their careers on denying people in the middle of a pandemic and this economic crisis a survival wage. All right, so we'll see who where they stand. But this is Ro Khanna, who I think is one of the key figures of the Justice Democrats and the progressives in Congress. He was on the Bad Faith podcast with Breonna Joy Gray in Virgil, Texas, and he gave an interview there. And I thought that it was honestly very telling, what he said in this interview. And I think that this pretty much says it all and tells us everything that we need to know about their strategy, and if they're willing to stand strong on this and to actually fight on something that they said that they believed in and campaigned on, and told people, told progressives, you got to vote for Joe Biden because this is the reason why, right? We're going to get these little few crucial things that will be better than Trump, right? But so far, this bill is shaping up to actually give less people less money than what Donald Trump provided for COVID relief, right? So let's take a look at this clip. This is Congressman Ro Khanna on what he answering the question if he's willing to, stand up and to vote against any bill that does not include a $15 minimum wage, right? To refuse to vote for any bill that does not include a $15 minimum wage. This is Congressman Khanna's response to that on Bad Faith podcast.
If the minimum wage provision is ultimately stripped from the bill, would you still give a final vote for the COVID relief package?
I would probably. I mean, most progressives would. I mean, we're not going to deny people checks, and we're not going to deny people the money they need for vaccinations over it. But we will continue to fight for every possible procedural move. And we're talking about having Senator Sanders now introduce it still as into the reconciliation package, and then see if they would strip it. And we'll try again through reconciliation. We'll continue to fight. But I know people are progressives. They say, well, why can't you just vote no? And the challenge is that there are a lot of people who are hurting and suffering, and we're not going to sink an entire package over it. But by the same token, I don't think the moderate senators would as well. I think they'd vote for it in the final end. Also, it's really a White House decision.
Well,
All right. So, there he said it. Are you willing to vote against it? He says, or to vote against that COVID relief bill if it doesn't include $15 minimum wage. And he says, no, he's not willing to do that. And most progressives, the progressives he knows, and the most progressives in Congress, he, agree with him and take that same position. And so I think that, that's just, it's unacceptable. They have to understand that this is why we put them there. And this is why, this is why we supported them. And it's now or never, right? This is it. This is their final chance, right? If they're not willing to do this now, if not now, then when? These people can't wait any longer. People are hurting. People are suffering right now, and they need this. The working people, these are just people working in the worst conditions right now, right? And for a starvation wage, and we're saying we're willing to turn our back on those people after we've already turned our backs on 17 million people getting less, not getting checks that would have gotten the checks that got checks from Donald Trump, right? 5 million children, 12 million adults. We're willing to turn our backs on those people. We're willing to turn our backs on minimum wage workers now in the middle of a pandemic. Like, if not now, then when? The pandemic's only going to be getting better in 8 months. We're not going to have all these same, economic strains in place, right? To motivate people to give people the necessary outrage to move people into, the mass movements that we need people to be in. And this is why I honestly think that it's a mistake to even be relying on, these politicians without a massive grassroots movement happening in the streets right now. Like, I think that this is the shame, and this is what I feared under a Joe Biden presidency, was that there wouldn't be enough outrage. There wouldn't be enough public outrage that we could muster to get people, to get these, brunch liberals out into the streets to say, no, this isn't acceptable. I've seen so many people just defending Joe Biden on this, just defending Joe Biden. And it's, this is this is not the time. We have to criticize. We have to be willing to criticize these people in power, even when it's our party, right? And you've seen even the mainstream media has done some horrendous stuff, really just covering for Joe Biden in this. This was the headline out of the Washington Post, and this is a wild one because you've got in this. This is the paper. This is the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, right? The owner of Amazon, who is the richest man in the United States on any given day, and with like $180 billion. And this is the paper that he owns. And this was their take on the Biden COVID relief bill. Biden stimulus showers money on Americans, sharply cutting poverty in defining move of presidency. Yeah, they're talking about this COVID relief bill. Yeah, that same COVID relief bill. That's the one that they say Biden is showering money on Americans. I mean, can't you feel it? Guys, grab a towel. Grab a towel. It's so wet out here, I feel so bathed in riches, Isn't it like, aren't you just, make it rain, baby, right? This is $1,400, y'all. We've been waiting 3 months for $1,400, y'all. It's whew. Biden out here, come on, showering money on Americans. Are you kidding me? $1,400 and $100 less a week in unemployment benefits than you promised, and no student debt relief whatsoever. And now you're talking about seriously taking away a $15 minimum wage. This is your showering of money. Seriously, this is the Washington Post, though. This is a major news outlet owned by the wealthiest person in the entire country. Why that's legal, I don't know. I don't know how and why that's legal. I don't know how that's legal in any place that calls themselves as democracy. And hilariously enough, you see what their slogan there is, right? Democracy dies in darkness, right? If this isn't darkness right here, what is? If this isn't media darkness, what is? This is not them doing their job. This is not the media's job. The media's job is to speak truth to power. This is not speaking truth to power. This is not presenting a fact-based arguments here. This is fake news. This is why people distrust the media, because what are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes, right? Like, who are you going to believe here? They're telling you that you're being showered with money, sharply cutting poverty. Where is this supposed to sharply? $1,400, a one-time payment of $1,400 is somehow going to sharply cut poverty? For who? Where's the evidence of that? It's so this is the mainstream media, though. This is the job that our mainstream media is doing, and this is why, support independent media. Support us for as low as $1 a month. You really should be supporting independent media. You really should be supporting workplace democracy, because that's the only way we're really going to get any gains in this country. Electoral politics is just, at what point is the left? I hate that there's so many people that we're still going to see. They're going to turn around and they're going to say, the system is the problem. The system is the problem. The two-party system is totally corrupt and it's broken. The whole system is broken. But they're going to turn around and keep telling people and keep telling their audiences and keep covering these stories every day and sucking up all the oxygen and pushing people into these dead-end movements, right? And I don't want to be a part of that. I want to participate in that. I want to make sure that I'm, pushing in the right direction and also encouraging others to push in the right direction. And so the only direction for me at this point is towards the labor movement, towards workplace democracy. I'm talking, we need to democratize our institutions. We need to move towards radical democracy in the workplace, one worker, one vote, workplace, housing, democracy in our housing, democracy over, in anything that we define as a human right, there should be democracy over those institutions. And so we need to expand democracy that way. We need to expand our labor movement, and we need to build power and use our collective power through the labor movement. And I think the way that we do that is by organizing a general strike and exercising our collective power, standing in solidarity with, or whatever, being in solidarity with other poor, working class, marginalized people that are, in this desperate situation that this government has left them in, right? And if they're not willing to do it, if they're not willing to concede the $15 minimum wage, that's a compromise, right? So economist Richard Wolff recently pointed out that by 2025, given the standard rate of the typical rate of inflation, right, 2 to 3% inflation year over year, by 2025, when the $15 minimum wage finally becomes a $15 minimum wage, do you know how much that $15 will actually be equivalent to? $13.80 in today's money. All right. So by the time we get to 2025, the so-called $15 minimum wage is going to be a $13.80 minimum wage. All right. And that was the same, minimum wage that we were supposed to be, that $15 minimum wage that we were supposed to be fighting for back in 2012. Yeah. Sadly, that became a $13.80 minimum wage by 2025. And sorry, actually, you're not getting it. And the thing is, if they don't pass this minimum wage bill here, do not believe a word they say. It is not passing under Joe Biden. Is not passing in the next, honestly, it's not passing in the next 4 years. It's likely not to pass in the next 10 years after this. All right. If they do this, all right, we will not see a $15 minimum wage. The Republicans will up it by some paltry number. They'll come into power in 2024, and they'll move the minimum wage from $7.25 up to like $10 an hour, which will be the equivalent of like $9 an hour in today's money by then. And they'll get all the kind of, they'll be faux populist for it, and they'll win over poor, white working class voters that will be like, well, they at least gave me a raise, right? They gave me, the Democratic Party will continue to cede ground to the Republican Party, and it'll just be more of the same, right? And I can't in good faith continue to encourage people to put their time, their effort, their energy, their money, their sweat equity into these movements if they're not going to actually succeed, right? And I think that the movement that is guaranteed to succeed for us is the general strike. If we workers combine together collectively and say enough is enough, they absolutely must fold to our whims. And especially right now, to all the essential workers out there, you have immense power collectively. That's why, I try to cover what's going on in Amazon. That is a crucial unionization effort going on in Alabama right now for Amazon workers, and they should have our full support behind them. Voice your support for the workers the Amazon workers in Alabama doing their unionization drive right now, and throw your support behind them. But we also need to be ready and willing to say, if you're somebody that isn't, at great risk, we're going to have to make a sacrifice, because it's asking, you sacrifice now, because if you were the one that was suffering, you would want people to sacrifice a little for you, right? If you were in the more destitute, more helpless, more vulnerable position, right? You would hope that people would be willing to sacrifice a little now for you. And we should be willing to sacrifice now if you need a selfish reason, because it might be you next time, right? We're all living 80%, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. We're all just one paycheck away from risking homelessness, bankruptcy, destitution. People are hurting right now, and so it could be you next, right? And once you're there, once you're in that situation, it's usually already too late. The system chews you up and spits you out, and you lose all your power, and there's nobody left to fight for you. So we got to fight for the people that are unable to fight for themselves any longer through no fault of their own, but because the system has failed them, and we need to fight for them. And also it's fighting for ourselves so that we can stop the bleeding here and stop this right-wing shift of the country, this descent into essentially fascism. If we're going to stop it, it's now or never. It's, Monday's the day, and we got one more chance for people to continue to believe in electoral politics. But I promise you that after this will shake the fate of not just myself, but plenty of folks through the movement. Go on social media and see the tone of people. If you don't, you can hear the hopelessness in the tone of people online. People are seeing through this and saying, listen, what did we vote for? What was all this about? What was the whole fight for Biden about, if not now? And I was told, Joe Biden, you got to elect Joe Biden. You can't do Bernie Sanders. It has to be Joe Biden, because if it's Bernie Sanders, he's not going to be able to get people like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema to agree with his legislation. You need a Joe Biden because he can bring people together and across the table and bipartisanship. Look at this. 0 Republicans are going to vote for his bill, and he can't even get a corporate Democrat to fall in line, apparently, supposedly, right? But the reality is that this is what Joe Biden wants. This is what Kamala Harris wants. They all had the opportunity to stop this, and they didn't. This is what they want. The only person that was serious about fighting for this in the Senate was Bernie Sanders. Point blank, period. Nobody else fought for this seriously in the Senate. Seriously. Elizabeth Warren did not stand up, did not do what she could to fight for this. And so enough is enough, right? We gotta be willing to go out there. And I get not everybody. I get the argument from some people say, well, what if you just can't afford to strike? I'm not trying to shame you if you absolutely can't, but just know that, a lot of people can't afford to get fired until they just do. And they have no power, and they got no one standing behind them, and they don't have a whole mass movement of people behind them. We can do that while shielding each other sort of in this. And I don't think, we can try mutual aid and those sort of support networks, but also we all got to be out here and willing to sacrifice a little, because we're all on the precipice of something far worse. Existential crises, right? We talking about these climate crisis. We're not even talking about that anymore, because we can't even get to that point, because there's so much broken in front of that, right? So we're talking about existential crises here, and the only way to prevent those from these catastrophes from happening is to do something right now. We have to call your congressperson, call your senator, push all of these congress people. This is the last time I'll tell anyone anything like that, to be honest, to spend any of their time or their energy doing that. But this is it. Before Monday and on Monday, call, make your voice heard. They say for every one person that calls, they see that as the opinion of 1,000 of their constituents, essentially. For every one person that calls, they see that as essentially like 1,000 people, right? So for a congressperson, if 100 people in their district call in, right, that's like 100,000 people, being behind that, having that same sort of opinion and feeling, right, in supporting that same policy goal, right? So when they see that for just 100 people to call in, that sends a strong message to a politician, right? And these are the politicians that supposedly can be reached still. These are the ones that are the uncorrupted ones, the Justice Democrats, the ones that are, supported by the people and the people's candidates, and don't take corporate PAC money and take small dollar contributions and supposedly have their ear to the people. These are the ones that have to, listen to us now. Now it's now or never for this. And I'm afraid of what comes next if we don't win this fight. All right. Hassan Mendoza says the one thing that is different about the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, the Democrats tend to consistently alienate their base, where the Republicans tend to take care of their base. Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit easier, I think, because their goals align more with their base. As much as Republicans like to talk about culture wars and cultural issues and how the left is all a bunch of like SJWs and that sort of thing, you can see, just look at current trends. It's usually the Republicans feigning outrage. It's this faux outrage, as if there's some, cancel culture. Oh, Dr. Seuss, and like they're making all this stuff up. Like who gives it? Is anyone seriously have you seen us talking about Dr. Seuss or Mr. Potato Head on this show? No, it's all Glenn Beck and these major, massive, right-wing media personalities. It's all them that they feign this outrage and act as if the left is all outraged over here because a bunch of egg abbeys on Twitter came out and said that they're canceling Dr. Seuss, and all of a sudden it's the whole left and they're all up in arms about this when we really don't care about those little cultural issues, and we're not sitting here wasting our time on that when we know that there are serious substantive economic issues that are affecting people's lives right now that we can actually do something about right now, and that those are much closer, much more within reach, and the other stuff is just used as a distraction. And honestly, the Republicans tend to do that more, but I think that their base ends up, their goals sort of align with their base more, right? Like they just want to screw people over and not give anything, right? So their goal is to just not give people stuff, right? To take stuff away from people. And you got the Republicans that all believe that all these other people that they've demagogued against, right? All the other people, the marginalized people, that it's all us taken from them, right? That there's some finite, it's all like a zero-sum game, and for every little bit that we gain, it takes something away from them. And that's who's really taken away from them, not realizing that we're down here, battling over literally 1% of everything, while the top people, that the top 1%, they got the 99% of the pie, right? And that's what they're holding on to, right? So instead of sitting here fighting over the scraps, like we could actually get together and overthrow this corrupt capitalist system and try to take back power and put it in the hands of the people, because that's where the power belongs, right? We need power to the people, as Fred Hampton said. So I agree with you by and large, Hassan. Actually, I do agree with you that the Republican Party tends to feed their base, right? They feed their base red meat with the build that wall and lock her up, and they'll do that stuff, and they're fine cutting the ACA. The sad thing is that the people that are willing to damage people are always willing to press the issue, but the people that are trying to help people, there's always going to be something in a piece of legislation that they're going to say, oh, I don't want to block this little thing from happening, when it's not enough. These things, we're talking about existential crises. This bill with a one-time payment is just not enough, and you can't do that. And so yes, I think that the Democratic Party, their goals completely do not align with their base, the progressive base in the progressive wing of the party, which is their base. And that's the real active base of the party. That's the people that are excited, right? That's their rabid, passionate base. It's the progressives. Those are the people that go out there and knock on doors and are really, they go out there, they volunteer, they spend their little $10, $20, whatever they can, their $27 to donate to the few politicians that they can, their hard-earned money while making minimum wage or being unemployed. And that's their real, that's where their rabid base lies. And the Democratic Party, their goals do not align with that base whatsoever. And so they constantly just spit in the face of their base and shift to the right. And it sucks to see, but how much can we got to stop acting surprised in media now. We have to stop acting surprised and call it spade a spade. And just stop, if we agree that electoral politics is broken, and even good people, because the thing is, do you believe that AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, that these are bad people, or corrupt people, or terrible people? Absolutely not. These are well-intentioned people. They want the same things as us. They've just got put into the same system. I don't think that you're going to find a better person that's capable of winning the way that they won, that can go into that system. Like, these were well-intentioned, pure intentioned people that went into the system, and the system has chewed them up and spit them out. All right. It just grinds through people, and it turns them into incrementalists, and, we got to wait. There's always a better time, and backroom deals. And that's what the system does. And we have to admit that's the system and stop, I just think I question, like, can we just sit around being angry and acting upset every time politicians do exactly what we should expect them to do, because that's what the system is designed for them to do? Or are we going to agree, hey, the problem is the system. We need systemic problems require systemic change. And so we got to talk about system change. How do we change the system? What is the system? The system that we're talking about always is capitalism. Start to call it what it and call it spade a spade, right? Like, stop saying the system and start calling what it is. It's capitalism. Capitalism is the problem. Capitalism is what is reproducing the wealth inequality that allows a handful of people, the corporations and the wealthiest people in our society, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk of the world, the Koch brothers, what's the other one that the right wing always talks about, the George Soros, right? Like, it allows these handful of people to have outsized power in our political system, right? Because, and they do that because they're reproducing the same system that they've implemented in our economic system, right? In a capitalist corporation, it's not one person, one vote, which is democracy. It is one share, one vote, right? So one share, one vote, which means the people that own the most shares have the most power. That is oligarchy, all right? When the wealthiest people in society control the society, that's what you call oligarchy. And that's what we have here. That's what a system of capitalism produces. That's why it produces this wealth inequality. It's also a very unstable and inherently undemocratic system, but it is immensely unequal and just exacerbates wealth inequality and allows a handful of people to gain outsized power in that system. And you lose your control over your democracy. And now popular policies that we all believe in can be stopped by people that we so-called, democratically elected. This isn't democracy. It's not if 61%, if 80% of 88% of Democrats support something and it's not enacted as legislation, I'm sorry, but that is not democracy. All right. That we don't have a democracy any longer. That's not democracy. So, okay. Yeah. Any comments we want to get to? All right. So Hassan Mendoza says both parties mostly work for rich oligarchs. They don't give a damn about the working class. Totally agree with you. These both parties are owned by there's two corporate parties. What up? What up? Shout out to What Up, who does aka Plasmon, who produced the theme song for our show. Thank you so much, What Up, and for all your support. Hassan Mendoza says the problem is that the squad would have to be willing to engage in a political fight to they would have to be willing to fight the establishment. I doubt if the squad is up to it. I totally agree. I do not have any faith in them to do this. Hear me now, quote me later. I hope that they will prove me wrong. I truly do. I hope that they will prove me wrong here. I will be so pleasantly surprised if they prove me wrong on this one. But I do not believe that they are going to exercise power. I do not think that they are going to do the right thing here and to block this horrendous bill from moving forward without a $15 minimum wage. And I think that it is going to be catastrophic, not just for the 32 million workers who stood to get a raise. 50%, over half of all Black workers stood to get a raise from this. All right. Over half of all Black workers in this country, over 60% of all Latino workers in this country stood to get a raise from this. Over 60% of women stood to get a raise from this. All right. Women workers, all right, stood to get a raise from this. All right. So this was going to have a massive impact on the exact demographic that the Democratic Party claims to be targeting through all this, weaponized identity politics is what it comes down to, right? They will use this, superficial symbolism representation, right? Oh, we gave you a Black person, and here's this bisexual woman, Kirsten Sinema, who's going to come in here and then do a little fancy little vote no on an issue that is going to disproportionately impact LGBTQ people in this country, right? And so that you get the person, you get the Black Lloyd Austin general to come in and continue the same drone attacks and U.S. imperialism abroad that damages Black and brown people all over the country, in Asia and Africa, in the global South, in Latin America, continuing the war on drugs, and you just get more of that, right? So they just try to distract us with the sort of shiny object. Oh, look at this, Kamala Harris, first Asian woman, first Black woman. And they're going to be playing this game in the mainstream media for as long as you will let them. They will continue to play this game to throw these people's identities in your face, because people consume it and they see, do you click on that story more? Because it's all about how many clicks these stories are getting. And so as long as these liberals keep clicking on these stories and feeling better because we got a Black woman in to be president, to come in, look what they get. They get a Black woman to come in and who lies before and claims that she supports a $15 minimum wage and that she would fight for a $15 minimum wage, who then turns around and does not use the power that she absolutely has as the president of the Senate to overrule the opinion of some unelected, undemocratically elected, bureaucratic official in the Senate that nobody has ever heard of. All right. The Senate parliamentarian. You tell me, have you ever heard of the Senate parliamentarian? Don't worry, I'll wait. Like nobody, I consume politics like morning, noon, and night, and I didn't know what this thing was. I never heard of a Senate parliamentarian until the Democrats needed an excuse of why needed cover for Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema to say, they Can't do anything. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Sorry, can't do anything, even though there's precedent. Hubert Humphrey. Who else was the other one? There was another president that routinely, disregarded the advice of their Senate parliamentarian. And the Republicans under Bush, they just straight up dismissed the Senate parliamentarian when he ruled against them. They were just like, "Oh, we'll replace you with somebody else." Just got somebody that would vote and change their opinion and did so, right? And was like, enough is enough, right? So the Republicans, that will never be an obstacle for Republicans. It's only ever an obstacle for Democrats, and it's because the system's designed this way, right? This is how it's designed. These Democrats, they are built to do this. It's not that they are losing. They are winning, right? This is what they want. They do not want to help you. They are the party of corporations. They want to fight over the game they're trying to play is to both be the party of corporations, and they just want to play the games of like which corporations they represent, right? Like the Democratic Party is like the Silicon Valley tech industry, feel good, that's them. Green corporations, right? The B Corps, I think they're called, and they get all those folks, and then the Republican Party gets all the fossil fuel industry, the pharmaceutical industry, right? All the gun industry, they get all the worst stuff, right? All the like just the destructive corporations, and then they play games and fight over which corporations they're going to represent, all the while leaving the masses of us all screwed over. And you got some people that are like right wingers, Republicans that are sitting in here like cheering this on or laughing it on when it's really like, listen, like this is. It's going to hurt everyone, right wing, left wing, independent, third party voter, Democratic Party, wherever you are. This is going to hurt you. Rural America, urban America, this stands to harm you wherever you are. And it's not just if it directly impacts you either by, you getting a raise from the $15 minimum wage. It's also about your community. There being more money in your community. There being more taxes. We can raise more taxes. This expands Social Security, because the way Social Security is designed is it's based off of how much your income is, right? You have to, the more you make, the more you get for Social Security in the end, right? So this stands to have a lasting impact on people. If we raise their minimum wage, we double their minimum wage, then that means that we've essentially doubled their Social Security benefit when they retire. We are doubling what is, for most Americans at this stage, your pension, your retirement plan is Social Security. Most people do not have a pension plan. You tell me, by show of hands in the audience right now, who's got a pension plan at their job? Most people do not have a pension plan at this stage, right? So most of us do not have pension plans. You're relying on Social Security. If you're watching this right now, odds are Social Security is your retirement plan, right? How many people got a healthy savings in the bank, right? A nice nest egg put away right now, right? No, people are living paycheck to paycheck. So 4 out of every 5 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So nobody's got that, right? So anywho, let me keep going. Hassan Mendoza says, if they don't pass the $15 hour minimum wage, the Democrats will alienate their base even more than they have since the November election. They will lose at least the House over this. No, they're almost guaranteed to lose the Senate in 2022. Like I forget who did the study and showed it would take they would have to do the second best of any control party. So any party that was in control, over the government, right? So they would have to do the second best that any party has ever done when they were in control of the government. They would have to do the second best in order to just maintain 50-50. All right. So they have to do the second best just to maintain 50-50. All right. With the one tipping control, right? So they are highly likely to lose control over the Senate. All right. In 2022, they're likely to lose control of the Senate. All right. So that's already say goodbye to the to control over Congress, right? And it's a Democratic control over Congress by 2022. And then they're really likely, they're also likely to lose the House as well in 2022, and almost definitely by 2024, at which point I believe that they will lose the presidency as well if they do not provide this minimum wage increase. You try going to people and voters in the next election and telling them, oh, we didn't get you $15 minimum wage, but we did every procedural trick we could to try. That's what Ro Khanna said. Well, we're not gonna block it. We're not gonna fight and do everything we can to do it. No, we're not willing to fight and stick our necks out on the line to do it. But we used every procedural maneuver that we could. I'm sorry, but I respect Ro Khanna. I respect the hell out of Ro Khanna, really. Even as a capitalist, I'm a socialist. He's a capitalist, but I respect him and what he's done. And for he represents his district well, right? Silicon Valley, like that should be a capitalist. You know, if any congressperson is going to be a capitalist, should be the congressperson out of Silicon Valley, probably. No, honestly, let me be real. It probably shouldn't. You know, they should realize so much more that they're in the heart of, the worst throes of capitalism, and they should absolutely recognize and have a social there. If I'm being all the way real, but you know, I respect him for what he is as a socially democratic capitalist congressperson, and you know, he's saying, you know, even with all due respect, to say that, you know, you're unwilling to do that, it's just not, that's not a winning political strategy. That's not the kind of thing that is going to win for. So this is a bad, you know, it's bad. It's the wrong moral strategy. You know, it's just the morally incorrect thing to do. It's politically the wrong move to make. Economically, it's the wrong move to make. Like every economist, even centrist economists, liberal centrist economists have come out and said that the real danger of this relief bill is to not do enough. It's not going too big. It's going too small, right? So the real danger is for them to the real risk that they run is not doing enough in this package. So that, you know, this is what they stand to do. This is the risk, and this is it. Like, this is not enough. This is inadequate. A one-time $1,400 payment, you know, 3 months into the Biden presidency, and that's all. We're going to throw them the scraps and then say good luck until October. See you again in October. Maybe we'll give you a little. We'll throw you another bone in October when, you know, more vaccinations will be out, and they'll be telling you, hey, go on, get back to work. You know, you got a vaccination, go on, get back. You know, kicking you off of, you know, any kind of like unemployment, even if you feel unsafe and you know, there are unsafe working conditions that you stand to go back into. They're gonna throw you all back to work, throw you to the wolves, and that's that, right? And then, so you know, this is it. This is the moment. We got to do it now. For anyone that hasn't done so already, please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and share this video out far and wide. Tammy is trying to correct me and say that Kamala Harris is the presiding officer of the Senate, not the president of the Senate. But I looked it up, and the vice president, according to my really amazing source, Wikipedia, unfortunately. Yeah, I know, terrible source. I shouldn't be using Wikipedia as a source, but that's where I happen to just like sneak a look at it. But I should verify somewhere else outside of Wikipedia. But you know, on Wikipedia it does say that the vice president is the president of the Senate, also known as the presiding officer of the Senate. So both titles hold, and I think it's just like a semantic thing. So they both refer to the same thing. She is the president of the Senate. And yes, okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But I think check me on that. Okay. So any other comments that we want to get to before we roll out? Give it a sec. I don't have my producer in studio with me, but if I don't see any other comments pop up, I will assume that means no. Okay. All right. I think that is, yeah. Tammy says Wiki's a good starting point. Yeah, that's all. You should use that starting point, but you should definitely trust but verify. Wiki is controlled. There's like one editor on Wikipedia that does like, he touches like, it's like, he spends like 18 hours a day editing Wikipedia stuff, entries, and is he's an imperialist, like a US imperialist, and has literally like blackballed left-wing outlets like the Gray Zone and investigative reporters like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate that have done very crucial, important work over the past few years. And so, you know, you should also be cautious when using Wiki. You know, do not use Wikipedia as your only source. That's for sure. All right. Thank you to What Up America, who says great show. Thank you so much. Deeply appreciate that. Thanks for being here, everyone. Always appreciate all of you. Thank you so much to all of our supporters, all of our coffee supporters and Patreon supporters for all that they do to keep this show afloat. You can become one of those supporters on Coffee at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. You can also find us on Patreon if you're already on there at patreon.com/radical democracy. Links are in the description box below. You know, I think that's that. Please call your congressperson, call these, call the squad, tweet at them, social media, hashtag general strike everything, hashtag general strike everything. Let them know you, at least if you can't go out there and be a part of the general strike, at the very least, you must be voicing support for a general strike. You must be willing to at least use the threat. The more they see that trending, the more they will be shaking in their capitalist boots. I promise you, okay? So let general strike, let hashtag general strike be the #1 trending topic. And let's start to get out there and be ready as Americans to start something akin to the Yellow Vest movement in France, or, you know, I forgetting some, you know, the whatever, you know, these other popular movements in other countries around Europe and in Asia. So we got to be willing to go out there. The India farmers strike, right? 250 million workers, farmers and other workers are on strike right now in India and have been for well over a month now, you know, fighting against neoliberal privatization over the farming industry, exactly what has happened to, you know, and ravaged small family farms in America. You know, Joe Biden goes and puts Tom Vilsack on as the head of agriculture after snubbing Marcia Fudge and sticking her in, you know, HUD after she said black people always get stuck in HUD even though they have no experience in housing. And then he went and stuck her there even though she wanted agriculture. And black farmers despise, you know, black and family farmers, small farmers despise Tom Vilsack because he's a big agriculture guy. And Joe Biden went and forced him through. And so yeah, you know, we got to be willing to do, you know, this you know, major, you know, critical step of saying, at least voicing our support for a general strike, show some solidarity, share this out, hashtag general strike, and let's make that happen. And let's just we gotta start fighting from the bottom up. And we can't be waiting on these politicians. If we keep waiting around for these politicians to save us, we're going to wait. We're going to die of old age. All right. So we just, it's enough is enough. It's now or never. You can contact your congressperson. This is the last time though. I cannot in good faith encourage you to waste any more time on this. All right. On electoral politics, if they can't do the bare minimum here. All right. All right, y'all. Peace.